All right, so we're going to design in CSS and do a layout using grid. I find grid is a lot easier to work with to get the layout how you want without having to worry about having to do a lot of margin and floats and everything. So this is a wireframe that I'm kind of modeling after. So I have my navigation at the top. I have kind of like a splash image where it's like introduction text and a picture. And then I have another section that kind of has like 3 articles. So what I want to do is I want to start designing this. So in HTML, I've already done that. I have my body and I broke up the entire thing as a grid container. Okay. And for the top part, I have a header which has a nav element with an unordered list, and then line items for my links. For my main, I broke it up into 2 sections. I have an introduction section, which is this blue part right here, which is broken up into 2 more containers that I labeled as intro left and intro right. So this is my intro left, and this is my intro right, which is just an image. The next section has 3 articles with H2 tags, a picture, and paragraph. At the very bottom, I have a footer. So this isn't where the magic happens. It actually happens in the style grid. Now, sometimes it may be a little bit difficult finding out what you're trying to talk to. So I am going to start. So this is what it looks like beforehand. This looks pretty ugly. There's absolutely no styles on it whatsoever. Okay, but I have everything laid out. So what I want to start doing, and I just pulled the images from Unsplash. What I want to start doing is I want to start designing, but to find out what each container is a child of, say, my grid and everything, I'm going to start putting some CSS in just so that I can see what each container is. So I'm just going to comment coloring page to see all containers. Okay, so the first thing that I need is I'm going to let's do a margin. I'm just going to do 1 vmin for everything and a padding all around of 1 vmin. Okay, so it's going to take 1% of the smallest size, so either the width or the height. Okay, so that's not really going to do much, but let's save and refresh. Okay, so it's moving some stuff in. All right, so now we need to start seeing all of our stuff. So for the body, and I'm going to keep pushing them in with the margin and padding so you can see what's all holding what. So this is going to get copied again. So var margin and padding, and then I'm going to do a background color, and let's make this gray. Okay, so if I save, everything's gray. Now inside of the body we have our grid, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and just copy all this. Okay, so here let's do light gray, save, I refresh. Okay, so I can see my images are kind of messed up. Actually, let's just go ahead and fix that real quick. So images, all images are going to have a max width of 100%. I go ahead and refresh. All right. So, and that's why I put all my images inside of div tags, just so that I can resize them easily. So my grid is all inside of the body. Let's go and say, well, you know what? I want all of my grid elements, whatever one is subordinate to it. I want to have it as let's say light green, save, refresh. Okay, so now I can see that my footer, my main, and my navigation, those are the three containers that I can tag with my grid. Okay, so let's continue going down farther. I want to tag this navigation, so I'm going to do .grid header nav ul. Those are the containers that I want. I'm going to make this orange. I'm going to try to do this in one video, but I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. Okay. And let's see. My .introduction. Oops. I actually wanted this. That's why it wasn't look right. Okay. My .introduction. Any of the containers below that I want, and I'm going to make them light blue, save, refresh. Okay, so I see those, and we could do, this would be the .intro left. I want those. Let's make those pink. Save it, refresh. I'm not going to keep these colors in here, but I want to be able to see all of the containers that I'm going to do. Okay, so now let's do our bottom part. So that would be .info. And we want all the subordinate containers, the direct subordinates. And let's give them those, and let's do pink for that one too. Okay, so we see it's showing me that there are three containers that's holding all of those elements. Okay, if I wanted to color the actual info section, info, let's go ahead and color that. Let's just do green. Okay, so that info section is holding all of those, and my introduction, and let's make that one also, let's just do blue. And I refresh. Okay, so I can see everything that's being held. So on the outside, this light green, there's three of them, okay? And they are on top of each other. So now that I have this, I'm going to leave that, but those will eventually get removed. So we first want to start at our grid, which is holding all those light green sections. And I'm going to say display grid, okay? And then I can do grid template, and we want the rows because that's what's vertical. And then we want to decide how we're going to size it. So I'm going to kind of do a combination of this. So I'm going to use a repeat, and then I want the size to always take up the total content, but at a minimum I want it to be one fraction of the size of those three. So I'm going to repeat 3 times, and then I'm going to do the min max, and I'm going to do 1 FR and auto. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So I save it. I'm going to refresh. Okay. So now I have those laid out. Let's continue. So this is my grid for the dot grid. Okay, so that's like my main page part. Now let's go ahead and do in here, this would be my introduction area. So that's the blue, and I want to contain those light blue areas. So dot introduction, and this is going to be a display, so I'm going to nest grids inside of grids. And then this one is going to be grid template, and we want columns. Okay, and then I want this and I want this, but I want, if I'm looking at my picture, I want actually my image about twice the size of this. So I am going to do min max, where I am going auto at a minimum, but the largest size I want to go to is 1FR, and I may switch that, and then this would be 2FR for the other container. So let's go ahead and refresh. All right, and I might want to switch that 1FR at a minimum to auto. You can see how that changes. Okay, so based off the size, it's going to increase. I liked it the other way. Auto and 1FR. Refresh. Okay, so I got those laying side by side. Of course, I'm going to have to do some editing on it. And then I have my info.info, and we want, that's my green, and I want those red sections. So this one was going to be display grid, and then I want grid template, and this is going to be columns. And this is going to repeat 3 times, and I want for each one min max. Let's do at a minimum, it's going to be 1FR, and largest is going to be auto. So let's go ahead and save and refresh. That didn't do what we want, so we want them actually sitting. So I'm going to switch it around, 1FR. So if I have this as the max, it's going to force it where it's going to have them side by side. So I reset, and now I have them side by side. Okay, so I have them, I mean, this is a very basic layout. We did not hit the navigation. So dot grid header nav ul, and then we want those as a grid, excuse me, display grid, and then we want them sitting next to each other. So this is grid template template columns, and we're going to repeat this 4 times. 4 times, and we want 1FR. Save, refresh. Okay, so it still looks pretty ugly. The colors do help to be able to separate out what's going on. Now, this size right here, I actually want this to size itself. I want it to be really close to the size of my buttons and this. So then let's look at the grid. We have where it's going to be auto, or at a minimum 1FR. Let's go ahead and switch those around. 1FR, and we'll refresh. That is not what we wanted. I'm actually going to undo that. Okay, well, let's just continue on. It's not too bad. Okay, so min max 3. I might do auto and then do this. Okay. All right. So now that we have that, we could actually start laying some stuff out. So we got our basic. So let's look at navigation. So we have our grid set out. Let's put a space between all of them. So this would be grid. Let's do grid gap. And all around it, I'm just going to do vmin. Save it. Refresh. Okay. And that, I'm going to go ahead and put that in my introduction, my info. Let's save it. Let's refresh. Okay, so now we got them kind of spaced out. In here, the text, I want to make sure that I have some padding in there. So inside my introduction, we have dot info right, or excuse me, dot info left. We want to be able to tag that. So let's say that we wanted to do a background color here of light gray. Save, refresh, and it didn't hit it. So let's be more specific. Dot introduction space and do it. Okay. Introduction. We want that entire class. Intro left. Oh. Intro left. INTRO. Helps if I spell it right. Okay, so we hit it with gray. Let's put some padding between the word, so the subordinate element. So dot introduction, dot intro left, and I want all elements below that. Padding 1 vmin. Save, refresh. Introduction. Okay. And then for our intro right, that image, we need that to size in there. So dot introduction. And we're just going to make sure that we're going to hit it. Introduction dot intro right, and we want the image that is inside that, wherever it is, and that actually no, I want to do this. Nope. Image is going to take the width of the container. So width is 100% of that container, because now the grid is sizing it. I love it when it doesn't work. Our max width, this is our, let's make sure we're hitting it. Ooh. Introduction, intro right, and then that's the image. Let's just hit it. Intro right, directly subordinate. And we want a padding in there. Padding. Let's do 1 vmin. Save, refresh. Intro right. Dot intro reduction. Let's also do a background color. Color of light gray. Okay, I hit it. The width of that intro right, this should be inside it. We'll play with the right a little bit. All right, so we have that. Let's just see how it is when it's bigger. Okay, so it is resizing, which is what we want. So it shows us that it's a little bit responsive, not very responsive, but it does help. Okay, next pieces that we would need, the article headings. So that .info, we could put a color on that, but well, actually we know that the introduction area is going to have that light blue. So here we're going to put a background color of light blue. So ultimately I'm going to be overwriting a lot of my colors. Okay, so there's that light blue, and then actually that was a darker blue. And we have our grid gap. Intro left. We didn't put a padding on it. Padding. 1 vmin. Save. Okay. All right, so now our article heading, all of these, we want to position those. So let's look at, that's our info. We don't want a background color for that, but for each article, so .info article, we want to design that some. So let's do background color, and that's going to be light gray. Refresh. Okay, so we hit that color. We want a we want all the elements in there to size down some, have some padding. So let's do padding so they're not pushing up against the edge. 1 vmin. We'll go ahead and save that, refresh. Okay. So that's hitting pretty much all of our stuff. The only thing, well, navigation, we didn't hit that yet. Okay, so we have our UL elements. Now we know that we need to get our .grid header nav UL li anchors. We know that we're going to have to design those. All right, so our UL elements, we don't want the bullets, so those are gone. Our anchors, our text decoration, we're going to get rid of, so that's none. Save, refresh. We want to text transform. We're going to do uppercase, save, refresh. I want to center the text, so text align, center, save, refresh. I want, so this color, that's ultimately what's holding it, but we need to create those. So let's go in and we need to hit those. So we're going to do a background color of, let's say, dark gray. save it, refresh. All right, but we want to have a padding on it, so padding 1 vmin, refresh. Actually, these are probably going to end up becoming, I'm going to hit the line items. So .grid, header, nav, ul, li. Let's do that. Hit them that way. Okay. Why is that not centered? All right. So we hit those buttons. See what else we need to do. So we could put a hover state on it. Let's copy this. Hover state. So hover. And we're not making any change to this. Actually, why don't I put the text align? Let's see. There we go. Now it's centered. Okay. We're going to actually put the background color here so that we can change the hover state. So, and we need to put the color of the text. So let's do white. We're going to refresh, look at it. Okay. So white, that 1 vmin looks like it's fine, top and bottom, but not right and left. So we want maybe, let's do 2 vmin and 1 vmin for vertical. I did it the wrong way. 1 and 2. Save, refresh. There we go. Okay, so those buttons look all right. Now we want to hover. So let's say when we're hovering, we're going to change the color to black. We're going to change the background color to white, but we want to put a box shadow on it. And let's see what that looks like. So we hover over. Okay, I think that's fine. And all right, so let's start building a box shadow. Box shadow. I'm going to do 5 pixels, 5 pixels. Let's say 10 pixels, and then I'm going to do the dark gray for my color. Let's refresh. Let's look, so that when we hover over there, it's showing that shadow. But I want that shadow actually on just about every element. So the introduction, that's going to have it. So that would be my intro left. There's the shadow. My intro right is going to have it. So introduction intro right is going to have it. And let's see, my info, each article is going to have the box shadow. So let's go ahead and save, refresh. Okay, so now we got shadow elements for all of our stuff. This will help kind of have it pop out. I'm not really happy with that image, but we know where we can tag that to try to improve it. So all of this, we could, now that we have our pieces, we could start undoing some of the colors that we had. So let's go ahead and undo those colors. So the body, I am putting an initial color. I don't need the gray on there anymore. But all of these elements I can go ahead and cut out now because I know what each container is in. So just removing that, that's starting to give me a much different look for that. We haven't touched the footer yet, so we could go ahead and just hit it directly. Whoops. Footer. So inside the footer, I want text align center. Okay. So in terms of our wireframe, we're not too far off. There's still some things that we could do for layouts. That image still needs to get fixed. Our 1FRs are still very narrow, but let's look at what it looks like when it's full screen. So we still have quite a bit of space here between our navigation and our element. That area is still a very large area, so we might want to decrease that. We have everything spaced out in terms of our style. We have our items, we have this section, we have our header sections. Okay, so these images, those should center in the page. So we're going to have to probably hit that. But for doing grids, we were able to get a layout very quickly, like within 30 minutes, using grids instead of doing float lefts, float rights. It does take a little bit to set up for the colors, but once you get the colors set up, it's easy to see what you need to design. And then I'm basically just going to do tweaks to make it where it looks good. So that's basically how you are going to use the grid system for styling a page. It happens pretty quick. The main thing that I would say when you're trying to do that is classes are your friend. You want to make sure that you're using them when you're building this out. And it helps if you have a design that you are going for before you start. I can nest grids inside of grids. I can use them just to help stuff space out more in kind of like a using it like flex boxes, or if I needed this entire main section, I could have made these as this is, let me increase this, where this is taking up 1 FR, this is taking up 2 FR, and these are each 1 FR, and have that as one whole section, or however I want to do it. I can still choose to start them in specific spots, but for responsiveness, this now is resizing to my page. So outside of some breakpoints, it's really not too bad. So when I get down far enough, I'm going to want to have this go below for a media query and this fill up the width. And I want to have this be one above the other. I still would want to adjust this size, but for within 30 minutes of changing it, it's actually pretty quick for trying to lay out. I prefer this way, even though I am not as familiar with it, over doing floats or trying to implement Bootstrap any day, because the code is fairly light and it operates and does the same stuff. All right, good luck. Have fun.